found the GroomPod. Welcome to our virtual salon. My name is Susie, and I'm your host. I'm a mobile groomer from Seattle, Washington, and anybody who knows me will tell you I love to talk, especially about my job. And one of my favorite people to talk to is my friend and mentor and the co-star of this show, the curator of ingredients, Miss Barbara Bird.
Hey, Susie. So glad to be here with you. I'm looking forward to our chat. What are we talking about this week?
Oh, we're going to talk about all of the really cool things that you can add to your table that make your life as a groomer better. And then you are going to talk about science, which don't we just love that? It's going to be fun. All right. Well, what's new this week is brought to you by, I forgot the rest of it. This podcast is brought to you by our kind sponsors, Best Shot, Show Season, Precision Sharp, Groomore, and Stasco. And you guys, you can support the show by going to our website, thegroompod.com, and finding the Patreon button or the donation button for a one-time donation. What's new this week is brought to you by Groomore Software. If you haven't found Groomore, you're missing out. Groomore is an all-in-one software solution for your grooming business. Whether you are a solo mobile groomer or manage several shops, Groomore has everything you need. 24-hour online booking and forms, routing, credit card processing, reminders, Google Calendar and QuickBooks integration, and so much more. And the best customer service anywhere. Shop, mobile, or house call, Groomore has you covered. And they're giving us a free month. Just enter GroomPod22 in the coupon code. My instincts were right, Barbara. Looking at that puppy.
Oh, yeah?
We were dead on. They got the puppy home. It was the runt. The other dogs had already left. It was not the person who had been holding her deposit. That lady sent the deposit back, apparently. It was another breeder that another breeder said, oh, try this, and these dogs are from California, blah, blah, blah. So they got this little yellow collared puppy, just full of energy, full of life, crazy smart, wonderful little dog, wouldn't swallow her food. She would chew the food and spit the food out. Chew the food and spit the food out. She wouldn't swallow her food. They tried every possible kind of food. We couldn't figure out why this little puppy was not swallowing. So we think that perhaps, and this is all speculation, they were syringe feeding the dog. And the dog had not even learned to chew and swallow food because they were syringe feeding it. So they sent the puppy back. It was just weird. Heartbreaking. They had the puppy about a week, but the weight was dropping off the dog so fast they just couldn't risk it. They had to take the dog back. And she said she thought the breeder kind of wanted to keep that puppy. And it was definitely smaller and definitely not thriving as much as the other dogs were. But then they got her home and she was just the best personality you could ever want, but would not swallow. Have you ever heard of that?
No. That's just the weirdest.
Sometimes neurological problems will cause it, but this dog didn't show any signs of that. Didn't show any signs of any other health problems. The knees even looked okay. Apparently, I didn't get to see it myself. But, I wouldn't swallow. Hey, if any of you listeners out there have ever heard of anything like this, let me know. Pretty weird. But anyway, we're looking for a Bichon puppy female, pet quality. So if anybody has anything in the Northwest, I'm sure that we could probably get someone to pick it up and drive it to her great family. Cannot talk enough about the way they care for their animals. The dog would be loved. The dog would be well boundaried. It has a fenced yard. They're older, but the kids would take the dog afterwards, and they have other dogs that I groom. I've been a part of this family for over 20 years. I would totally feel confident putting any dog in there. They're experienced dog people. That's why this was so weird, that they couldn't get this puppy to swallow the food. It would chew it. It would be really excited. It would grab the food, take it away, chew it up, and then spit it right out. Just spit it out. Just crazy. So
They did go to the vet?
They took it to the vet. As a matter of fact, the daughter or the granddaughter of the lady is one of the kids that started becoming a vet tech because I encouraged her, and so she's a vet tech at the emergency clinic now. So the dog got examined immediately. The dog was taken in several times and followed through with. There was no obvious reason for this dog not to swallow the food. Crazy. So I was bummed. I never got to play with the puppy this week. I was so counting on it.
No, what a downer.
But they didn't tell me either, so I showed up. Like I always do.
Oh.
Yep. And so we got to talk about it and grieve for the little yellow puppy that we'll never see again. But I got a call from the people who had the crankiest cat I had ever groomed, just the mean cranky cat with the lady with the one leg, and then they cut the other leg off, and she can't get out of her condo, and she's just mean. They got a new kitten.
Oh, good.
I know, and they say that he is the opposite of the mean kitten. It's the nicest kitten ever. They just want me to do a little butt shave and give it a nice bath and a brush and a fluff. And so I do get to see that kitten. It's not quite the same, but it'll be lovely to see the kitten and see how the people are doing. I guess the guy had one lung removed or something like that from lung cancer since I've seen him. Yep. But they're still plugging away. It's amazing. But speaking of weird crap that happened, I don't remember if I told you that I had my rent-a-dog here, the dog that stays with me 1 week a month, Figgy. And she had a massive seizure in the middle of the night. Did I tell you that? She's a seizure dog. She's had seizures since she was 16 weeks old. They were always been very mild focal point type seizures. Then eventually she had a couple big seizures, and we were in with a neurologist now with her, and she's on all kinds of medication and everything. And we were sound asleep at 3 a.m, and she sleeps up here with me and the 2 cats. So all of us were in the bed together, and I don't know if the dog got startled by a cat jumping over or if it was just a flat out sound asleep, all of a sudden seizure, but she basically died in my hands. She went out. She was limp in my hands. And at that moment, I had to do a little CPR because I can't remember my dog's CPR as well. I was like, hey, are you okay? Are you all right? You know, the old check the airway. But I did remember how to blow in her mouth, and I got her back. But it was she peed everywhere. The cats were freaked out. I mean, it was horrible. But I realized that I need to update my CPR practice information. And we've been going to schedule a local class here, but there hasn't been one. So I'm going to go to my old vet on Monday, and he's going to review it for me because she's coming back for 2 weeks. My thinking is the cat jumped on her and she woke up and it created a seizure because she's not really ever had anything but the mildest of seizures here, or things are getting worse. We just don't know. So anyway, the point of this is know your CPR for your animals if they're in your care, if you're taking people's pets in for boarding or anything like that. Get a little CPR training so you know what to do in case you're sound asleep at 3 a.m. and your beloved 1/4 of your dog has a massive seizure. And oh, geez. And they're going to Israel. I'm like, really? So now I'm going to worry about the dog and you guys the whole time you're gone. This is bad. This is really bad.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know it. So what's new with you? What's been going on?
Well, I'm excited about my invitation to go to Fun in the Sun in Orlando, Florida. And I've never been to that one. And it's a smaller show, so I think it's very doable. And it's our friend from Atlanta, Marg.
Oh, the cool kids. Excellent.
Yeah, and she just out of the blue called me up and invited me. She said, I want to get you a ticket. I'll bring you here. I said, well, okay. So I'm excited about that. And then I'm also just finished today a meeting, getting together to do a local South Carolina day with the bird of some nature. And I'm excited to do that. So things are getting a little busier around here. Let's say that. Yeah.
I keep forgetting, and I'm going to say it right now and interrupt you because if I don't, it'll be gone out of my freaking head again. I want to thank Colleen Gillespie for her donation. Colleen, your donation went to buy us a coat tender so that we can test it out. I'm going to get it first, then I'm going to send it to Barbara. We're going to share it, but I can't thank you enough for that. It's going to be so much fun for us to try the coat tender. Thanks, Colleen.
Thank you, Colleen. What a nice donation. Just enough money, huh?
Exactly. It worked out pretty darn good. Should we go on to our first appointment?
Sure, let's go. Let's get out of here.
Did you know that Stasco has come out with a couple of new products? First, there is the Stasco Oatmeal Protein Conditioner. This conditioner provides exceptional body and manageability and super shiny finishes. And it has a wonderful apple scent that I love. Great in the recirculator, too. And they have a new matching protein conditioning spray, dematting, anti-static conditioning, and finishing all in one, just like the original Stasco spray, but with that delicious apple fragrance. Look for these new products at trade shows and your favorite distributors like Cascade Grooming Supplies. Ready, groomers? Here comes our first appointment. The tables we work on are really important, but even more cool are all of the accessories that we can use on our tables. And I totally enjoy exploring every single accessory out there. And I thought, let's talk about it today. How's that sound?
Sounds great to me. I'm on board.
Okay, let's start with the tabletop. We'll start right there at the foot where all the grooming starts from the base up. We're going to talk about the tabletop. I like to have an anti-fatigue mat on my table. I know some people use yoga mats. What do you have on your table?
Oh, well, my table didn't make it for the move, so I don't have a table. I'm using a table from here that is just about the opposite of what I would want in a table. It's all black tabletop, which I really don't like. Fortunately, I have white dogs, but it's not my favorite, and it's uncomfortable. It's hard and uncomfortable. I need to get a yoga mat or something. Yeah, I'm going to get for on top of that, I've ordered one of the towel tops that go on the top of your table. I love those for sports drying because the water goes right into that towel. If you're drying properly from the top down, you can just like chase off a lot of water and it just goes into the towel and it doesn't make the table slippery or uncomfortable or wet. I mean, you're not going to blow that much moisture off. Yeah, so I did that.
The ones you had, they kind of bungeed around the table edge, didn't they?
Yeah, there's elastic around you. You buy them for the measurements of your table, and then there's elastic around them, and so they go on just like a bottom sheet.
That's nice. When the absorber towels came on board as a sponsor way back when, I immediately lost complete use for most of my other drying towels that I had. And I was a big fan of moisture magnets from Romani, but really any of those kind of German, thickly felted towels that work a little bit like a sponge, but not quite like the absorber.
Yeah.
Then one day I thought, well, maybe I'll just have the dogs stand on this while I'm drying them. And lo and behold, they are really good for that. So now I'm still buying them. I'm still using them, but I put them underneath every dog I dry just so that I'm not spewing that moisture up into the air because as you can see out the windows, it's raining. It's been raining for a few days now. We're already moved into fall here in the Northwest, and that for me means moisture in the air. Those moisture magnets hanging everywhere I can put them, over the table divider, on the floor, holding behind the dog.
Anywhere you can put them, especially if there's a little bit of air around them. And they will also help to reduce the decibel level of your forced drying.
Absolutely. Oh, my new dryer. I never mentioned my new dryer. It's pretty nice. I've been using it quite a bit. It is way hotter. It's hot. It blows hot air. I haven't had a dryer that blows that hot for a long time. I'm finding when I'm trying to finish the face and there's just a little bit left, if I pop it on really hot and move away, it dries the hair instantly. It's kind of neat. So, anyway, I digress. Back to what we were talking about. The idea here is that we're trying to make our lives easier, and grooming arms are something that most of us use a lot of the time. Some of us use all the time. I pretty much use a grooming arm all the time. And I have used a lip system, which is a linked interval positioning system from Hanvey Engineering for the entirety of my grooming career, with very little exception. When I was house call, I just had a single arm. And then I figured out that I like to have an arm on either side, so I carry two arms in. Then I figured out that was too much to carry in, so I went back to one arm and a groomer's helper. But it's a journey of experimentation, especially when you're a house call groomer, of what you can take in and what you can't. But for a long time, I've been using the lip system for my table. And the difference between the lip system and other grooming arm systems is that it bolts through the table. It actually has holes in your table, and it bolts with bolts underneath the table, which makes it super duper strong. As a matter of fact, I think like Curtis might have used to said, "Who taught me to speak? For heaven's sakes, Susie."
Spit it out.
Yes, Curtis used to hang upside down from the lips. So he's not a huge guy, but he used to hang his whole body underneath the lips. It's strong. It's got eye bolts in great spots all around. And you get stainless steel chain links with clips on the end. And it makes it extremely customizable. You've got two eye bolts in the top, like three going down the side. And with these chains, you can customize the top and the sides of your grooming posts to do what you need them to do. So if you're going to use some of their accessories, you've got the chains for that. As a matter of fact, after doing this little episode and writing it up, I realized I'm going to go to Home Depot and I'm going to get a bunch of extra chain so that I can customize my lips even more. And it comes with the steel chains and the hooks, and the little shorty chain, that's my favorite chain. It's like one link with a hook on either side.
When you're tethering those dogs to the front pole, when they really need to be so they can't move their head around, you want it to be right up again. In fact, sometimes I just use a bolt that attaches to the ring. and then so we have to remind us ourselves and our listeners that when you're going to tether a dog to the front pole, you really need the kind of grooming loop that has a sewn in ring, not a movable ring that goes around the sides of the neck, because then they can move their head, which is what you want to minimize when you're really getting them close to the pole there. On my super small dogs, I would just put it on the pole and then snap the other side of that double snap to their
Loop, the grooming loop.
because we used to call it the noose.
We did.
That's a bad vibe, unwoke name.
Not only that, it's actually one that has manifested into reality for some dogs, and we don't ever want that.
I really don't want to use that term, but I used it for so many years that it's kind of stuck in my brain.
Yep.
We also want to mention the Hanvey 3-piece flank strap.
Yes. There's a lot of controversy with the flank straps, apparently, because I guess if the dog's sitting really hard and you've got it up tight, it will cause bruising. But I'll just say this. A tool is as gentle as the person who's using it, and you can always pad that with a noodle. You know, there's ways.
Yeah, I've seen them with sheepskin on the very bottom of those things. And you can also use a wider belly strap.
Yep.
And then I get one of those little kits that you can get on Amazon that has a little strap with Velcro on it that you can put it around any grooming arm and firmly attach it so you don't need to use your existing rings at all. You can just put it wherever you want it.
Yeah, and then tighten up the dog. So let's talk a little bit about why this is important. As Barbara over there giggling because she's based. I'll edit that. um, so
Here.
yes,
And I'm talking about the scientific method,
yeah.
like,
Prepare yourself. Get your lab coat out. Get ready. So for me, I like to use 3 points of connection for the dog. I like to have the dog connected on the hips and the dog connected at the neck or a trach saver. Those are another really good handy kind of a deal. And then either through the back legs to the back post or through the front to the fixed ring. So that way, it's much less likely that the dog will step off the table by accident. And since I'm doing a lot of senior dogs or special needs type dogs, I really want them to know where the edge of the table is. And then, speaking of that, I divide the table in half with a table divider because I don't want the dogs to wander back in the far corner. Because what does that do, Barbara?
that makes you break your back because you can't reach them, especially if you're doing your body a favor and grooming sitting down. Hello.
Absolutely. I use a table divider on everything from about small Springer Spaniel, medium Springer Spaniel size down. So they're only playing on half of my table. There's another way to divide tables out there that's really cool, and that's the groomer's wall. And I'm thinking about getting a groomer's wall. I'm not exactly sure if it's going to work for me because I need it to be behind the lips and I don't have a lot of room between the end of my table and the wall, and it also has to clamp on one side. It's a fixed wall that the dogs can lean up against that doesn't flex. Hanvey also has a table divider. It's made out of very thick vinyl, and it does flex a little bit, so the dogs will lean into it. Some dogs are real leaners, so it makes it hard to scissor the top line. But there's ways to work around that too. One of the things that helps me work around that is my groomer's helper. I love my groomer's helper in conjunction with my Hanvey lips. Together, I can move my dogs around my table and keep them pointed the direction I need them to. I'm in a very small trailer, tiny, teeny 8 by 10.
It's even too small for my big fat body. I can hardly fit in there. I don't know how you do it. Everything is in arm's reach. Everything.
Absolutely. I like it that way. But it does present its own little special problems. But the groomer's helper, when the dogs are on my table and I'm trying to work on the head, I've either got facing to the right or facing to the left because that's the way the dogs want to go and they want to push up against the table divider. But with my groomer's helper, I just move it out to the edge of the table that is facing the door, and then I can attach the fixed loop ring to the groomer's helper and turn the dog so I can see them head on. There's plenty of room on the table. They just don't think there is.
Oh, I see what you're moving them away from that pole.
Yes.
So you're not trying to scissor around the pole. I know I have a hardest time grooming heads. God, I got to try that. My groomer's helper seems to have been one of the many, many, many things that did not make the move from Tucson. And I'm grieving because they're so freaking expensive.
Yes.
And the other thing that I had that I'm not sure I have at all is my TableWorks tool caddy.
Oh, tell us about that. I don't have one of those because I have nowhere to put it.
So you put it on your pole.
My poles are against the walls. My table is 3 ends flush. It fits in like a refrigerator does in your house. That's why the groomer's helper, the ability to turn the dog towards me, is so helpful. Is because I can't turn my table and I can't get around to the ends.
I hear you. I hear you. The caddy itself doesn't sit behind the pole. It sits in front over to the side of the pole.
Ah, that might work.
It might work. But you've got everything within arm's reach and all organized and it's all ergonomic for you. So it's probably meaningless to you, but for other people, I loved my TableWorks caddies because I could put like 5 or 6 shears, and I could put blades. It's got an aluminum floor, and you can cool your blades on that. You can fit about 3 blades, which you hardly wouldn't want to. I only have one hot blade at a time.
Yeah.
It's just got space to put things.
Nice.
And have your scissors right there instead of dangerously at the table, which they would end up with anyway. But what I made myself do is put those scissors back in their right places after every dog. And just to take that time to do that, then when you've got the next dog, you don't have to kind of like sort through the pile of tools. So I'm for anything that organizes tools at my table. Right now, what I've got is a rolling chest to put my tools in here, and it's got 2 sides that pull out, and they're about an inch deep, little trays, and I can just put a certain amount of couple of scissors here, and some brush over there. I can use that, and as well as the open part of that box.
The toolbox. The toolbox. Yeah, the toolbox. Well, from where I'm sitting, I can reach my scissors where they hang, so they always go right back to there. It's been a long time since I've been able to put anything on my 36-inch table that then I wouldn't have to crawl somehow on the floor behind my table to get out from the tiny space that I do have available between the cabinetry and my table. I'm sure everything would fall right there, and that would be a horrible nightmare. So another thing with the lip system and with any of the dual grooming arms, well, I don't know how sturdy they are, but you have the ability to use hammocks and hip supports for the senior, older, injured dogs, the dogs that are more comfortable being supported that way. And because it's a hammock, you don't have to completely support the dog in the air. They can be partially standing on the table and their body supported in the hammock, and that's a way to kind of spread the weight out along the heavier dogs. And that works really well, and they're customizable. And if you don't like the ones that Hamby has, there's a bunch of people who make them on Etsy.
Right, Etsy is full of interesting grooming things. That's where I found the table cover.
And the Groomer's Helper knockoffs are there as well. I'll say this about the Groomer's Helper. It is designed to last. I've only ever bought one. And the way it has to release the tether, you can do well away from a dog that is panicking. And that is something that you don't get with the knockoffs very well. So I appreciate that about the design and styling, but there's lots of ways to do it. I put my Groomer's Helper on a grooming arm that's cut off so that I can move it up and down on the side of my table, but it's a straight arm. It's just a post.
I need a piece like that.
Yeah, you just buy a probably $29 Amazon thing and then saw off the top and then cover the bottom with vet wrap, or take the little plug that's on the one end and you just cut the curve off. You can make it as tall or as short as you want, like mine.
I had a short one somehow, and Groomer's Helper has like a square boxy thing that you put on over your round grooming arm so that it's more secure. Well, I had a pole that was probably about 6 or 8 inches high. And it was great, but I think I co-opted it and used it with my caddy. And now I'm missing both of those things. So I'm thinking, but if I used a taller pole, I could put the caddy up a little higher and keep the Groomer's Helper down at table level.
You sure could.
And
yeah.
Right. Good. Get an idea here. All right. Live on the GroomPod.
Right. I could see the thinking happening right in front of my eyes. I think that, there's also the dryer hose clamp, which is something that I cannot live without because the dryer hose pulls on my wrist, but I take the dryer hose, not the end, although I use it that way too, and loop it through the dryer hose clamp so that the dryer now comes from the top and it doesn't stress my wrist at all when I'm drying. But there are bad designed dryer hose clamps. The one, was it Table Works that did the original? Who did the original dryer clamp?
It was Tablewoods, and Chris Christensen knocked it off.
Yep. Those have, if you look at the way those attach to the hose, they are the best way to attach to a hose. They last, you can replace the little elastics on them, and you'd probably only have to buy one unless you're in the Northwest and it rusts shut, and then you try to move it and it breaks and you have to get another one. But those are really handy. Another way to deal with sitting dogs other than belly straps, they have the pillows that go underneath the dog's belly. Have you seen those? They're like foam blocks, and you just stick them under the dog's belly so that if they sit, they're sitting on the block, their belly's support.
At the dog show, they just put the dogs standing on blocks. Those dogs do not move, but I think it's horrible.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
I mean, I could see doing that for the last 10 minutes of the groom.
Not the whole groom.
I mean, you can walk by and go get a hot dog and eat it and talk to your friends and come back, and that dog is still standing on those 4 blocks.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun for the dog.
Yeah.
Sometimes I improvise. Like when the trailer was broken and I was working without a lip system on my table and I really wanted my table divided, I took a Rubbermaid bin and I laid it back there, and it took up space so the dogs couldn't get back there. And that was one way to kind of improvise. Also, if the dogs are sitting, you can stick a Rubbermaid bin underneath their belly if you got the right size one, and that'll help there. Dog show, the pillow, the head pillow. That's cool.
Yeah, I never was able to get a dog to put its head in it. I only see pictures of poodles. Well, you see pictures of show dogs because they probably were trained to put their head in the pillow from the time they were like 4 weeks old.
Yeah,
You know?
I wondered about that. It always looks so comfortable. If I was it takes me forever to scissor a poodle head.
We don't know whether that was like a 4-second moment and then it lifted its head and it got its treat or something. We don't know that was an extended period of time relaxing with their head straight in the pillow.
Right, you're right. Photography, you just can't trust things anymore.
But we know that poodles are capable of doing that. I trust poodles in that.
I do too.
But I don't know that I really trust Maltese.
So we should take a moment to mention the Trach Saver, because that's really fantastic way, different type of grooming loop.
It was the tool of the year, the innovation of the year a few years back.
And well deserved, definitely.
And mine didn't make it in the move.
Oh, well, see, you get to buy new stuff.
Indeed, and I am.
God. I don't want to hear it. All the fun stuff, though. Okay. I think that covers everything you can stick on your table to help you out. Can you think of anything else?
Nope.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Let's take a break, Barbara. You'll hear a little more of my new handiwork happening here. And then we'll be right back with that. We're coming back with Barbara's classroom. That's what we're doing.
Show Season has a great enzymatic cleaner called Kennel Fresh. And you dilute it with warm water and it smells good, and then it evaporates to be a deodorant. As the Kennel Fresh dries, it's enzymatic, it eats the bacteria and the odor source. So it's really good stuff. You can use it indoors or out. Find it at your local distributors or showseasongrooming.com.
The GroomPod and Precision Sharp would like to invite you to check out the newest precise cut shear called Lynx. Its patented design features a thumb ring that slides the length of the handle for perfect ergonomic placement of your thumb. Slide it, lock it into place, and get your best grooms on. Check it out at precisionsharp.com.
Groomers, take your seats. It's time for B-Bird's Classroom.
While we took that break, I ran out and I grabbed my lab coat, and I'm sitting here at my desk and I'm ready to learn some science stuff. So bring it on.
Well, I wanted to talk today about science. It's a huge part of our lives. We hear and read about science advances and that kind of stuff, but we don't always totally get it about science, what it is, where it comes from. You know, science has been around for hundreds of years. It's an intentional study to learn the facts of how our world works. And it's done in a way that you can have repeatable effects. You can really measure cause and effect. But in marketing, science is kind of in the process of trying to get us to buy things. People use pieces of science or science terminology sometimes to get us to give their remarks the value of, quote, science, to make it more sciency. Okay, so that's bullshit. And would be called fake science or bullshit science. It might just be called bad science or pseudoscience, which is like not really science. How can we tell whether science is for real and a part of the whole body of science that's been being accumulated and adding on to and subtracting here and there where a study is proven to be inaccurate or whatever, not provable evidence? And so, yeah, actually, Susie, science gets retracted from the body of science sometimes because sort of further down the road, someone will take a closer look at it and say, you know what, that's fallible. That's not clearly reasonable. That's not proven by what we see here as the evidence. And so that study will be taken out of the journals and out of the repertoire. It's rejected.
So, what you're saying is that it evolves.
Well, it evolves and it also kind of preempts each other. Or there's sometimes it's just science that kind of makes it into our world that there's just fake science that slips in.
They're trying to trick us constantly. I feel like I'm constantly on guard to tell what is truly science and what is marketing science.
Okay, well, here's a way. Here's some things that we look for in real science, okay?
Okay,
I've got signs of good science.
nice.
One of the signs is that the study or studies have been published in a reputable journal, a journal that has some status in the overall body of science, right? Now, sometimes when it's me and you and groomers, we might look at the references, and all of the journals and all of that seem like they could be for real or not. We don't really know what is a reputable journal, but there's certain what you can ask Google, but anything that is not published research or based on published research in a journal is not considered worth consideration. It's not a science. It can be an idea or it can be a fantasy, but it's not science if it's not worth sharing to the science community. And in that process, another aspect that's important for really good science is that it's peer reviewed. Peer reviewed is a standard process in any academic publishing. It's just a way to assess the quality and accuracy of new research. And what they do is they get people that were not involved in the study that have the qualifications, uninvolved researchers then evaluate the papers before publication, and it goes back and forth a little bit. Maybe somebody will suggest a change in wording or go back and look at this and that kind of stuff. So peer review can actually even take a year or two, but that's not the job of the publisher, because the publisher can have an editor that sort of goes through it for grammar and spelling. I wish they'd go through some of these science things for grammar, because it's the most weirdest sentences that you can imagine. I mean, when it gets technical, it's hard to put it in a regular format. And these people, it's hard to read. I mean, I want to change it. That's me. The editor in me is just compulsory. That should read like this and that. So they have these external experts that evaluate the study, the sample. But sometimes these other experts will ask for more information and you have to go back and study something else. It can take for years for a paper to really see the light of day. But that ensures fewer mistakes or weak areas. So if there's no peer reviewing going on, it's more superficial, and you have to know that. Pseudo-scientific practitioners will often claim that they can't get their work published because peer reviewers suppress anything contradicting prevailing doctrines. So peer review is not a perfect system, but it's really an important way to ensure that the researchers have done a relevant study. And another thing that you want to evaluate, if you can, is whether it seems as though the researchers have relevant experience and qualifications. And that's the difference between some of these studies that are actually like graduate school studies, like I had to do a thesis. They're good for academic purposes, but they're not really going to give you a lot of hard science.
There's probably a lot of opinion in them.
Yeah, not so
Okay,
much theses, dissertations. It's really a time for the graduate student to practice scientific method.
got it.
So it is practice worthy, and it is gone over. It is peer reviewed. And by the way, when you write a dissertation or if a master's thesis, you have to defend it in front of a committee. I did that.
Ooh, that's scary.
Been there, did that, and lived through it.
Wow. I hate that kind of stuff.
I like the send off a copy and get the notes back better,
Yeah, I can relate.
So another thing to look for is that this study or this piece of science that we're looking at is part of a larger body of work, so that there's been some development up to this point. This study is adding on to something or reassuring, or it could be that it's replicating. Good science is repeatable. If I do the same thing, use the same kind of subjects and do the same kind of controls and the same kind of active stuff to my project, I will get the same results as you, or within a margin of error, right?
Right.
As part of a larger body of work, you usually will see references that have to do like from the from several years back, maybe a couple of decades back even. There's a small group really that does a lot of research. There's very few cases of like you and I submitting a study that would pass. Sorry. Why don't you try the Disney Channel?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll take your study. Okay, if your study holds up to their scrutiny, if you've got a valid number of participants and enough controls of variables. We wondered the other week when we looked at tear stating, there's hardly anything, no studies on it. One of the main reasons is that it's not of medical importance. It's a cosmetic problem.
True.
It's not really a medical problem. Nobody wants to put the money in except maybe somebody that's going to make a product, right? And they have limited resources. So sometimes outsiders produce amazing science. And what is important is that the researchers have the evidence to support their study and their conclusions. An important part of good science is that it doesn't promise a panacea or a miraculous cure. And of course, what is happening now in the field of cosmetic chemistry, which is my passion, is that there's a lot of money and effort going into creating bio ingredients from the earth, vegetable matter, algae matter, a Korean skincare with all these fermented algae things and stuff in it.
Is this part of the all natural thing?
The demand for more natural is a real thing, even though I don't believe that all natural is a real thing. I don't think products can be all natural. They can be fairly natural, somewhat natural, as natural as we could make it.
Right.
What that has done, it has really motivated the research money and activity into creating biochemistry, more green chemistry into the cosmetic field and the home cleaning field and all of that. But even in that, that's not promising a miraculous cure. When you see a new product making big claims, you can be a little skeptical.
I think it's good to be a little skeptical most of the time.
Well, see, that's a part of scientific method
Oh,
is skepticism.
I didn't know.
Yeah, it's really a part of the scientific method is staying skeptical so that you're not just there unconsciously making your result happen.
Like critical thinking, taking a look.
Taking a look and being skeptical and making up a hypothesis that you can measure and prove or disprove. So that's one of the things that limits science is that science can't be holistic. It can build into a more holistic viewpoint of things, but you have to slice it so thin that you rule out all of the variables that might affect your result before you test one thing. And you want there to have been a control group or a group that didn't get the one thing. And you have to have what they call double blinding so that the participants don't know if they did or didn't get the one thing that you're testing.
Right.
One of the things that I think about pet care products is that they really have pretty much been made and evolved around cosmetic chemistry for humans and the result of humans experiments on human products. But here's the twist. That science often was based on animals, rats, mice, guinea pigs, beagles, cats, birds, well, monkeys.
Monkeys.
Well, you really have to have a good reason to use a monkey anymore. And it's turning out the whole animal science. That's another whole thing that's a part of science is the growth and development of tools to measure by. So the SEM, the giant magnified photograph, scanning electron microscope, and those huge photographs that we love to share and scare you with coat damage, that technology opened up a huge amount of other possible things that could be looked at that way and measured by looking at that. But they don't talk about this too much, but the truth is the scanning microscope, it only shows one strand of hair and a little itty bitty space of that one slice of hair. You can't show the whole hair at 10,000 plus.
I bet it's coming, though.
Well, it might be because the science marches on. One of the things that I thought that I would send you, I think I'm going to send you the link for this article that I've been kind of grabbing from in my conversation here. And I'm also going to send you an article that we're going to post when the podcast goes up, because one of the scientific advances in the area of hair care is actually, in addition to a lot of more bio products or plant-based products, surfactants, conditioning things, all kinds of things are now better if they're bio-based. There's a whole vocabulary that goes along with that. But not only are they that, but hair repair is now a thing.
Really? You just exploded my head.
Well, that's because for years I have drilled it into your head that there was no such thing as repairing hair because it's dead and it's just like the brick wall has crumbled down. Now, what do? You can't just throw more bricks at it. And hair doesn't take in nutrients the way we like to think of it. You can't treat it like a wilting plant. But we've been seeing little bits and pieces of the whole idea of repairing hair damage has been around for a few years now. And I ran into a study. One of the journals that I read regularly is the Cosmetics and Toiletries Journal. And they did a article on this, the ending cycle of split ends. So we're talking about hair. Oh, yeah, look at here. Look at here, Susie. I'm reading the advertisement on top of this article that I'm going to quote you. And the advertisement is for this trademarked ingredient named Pinoplex or Pinoplex.
Okay.
Bio inspiration for smooth and moisturized hair. Bio inspiration. We really just gotta be prepared for a lot of bio shit. Bio this and bio that. Bio inspiration. That's like inspired by nature. What's the difference between all natural and inspired by nature?
There's a lot of leeway in there.
A lot of leeway in there. Well, we won't go there. So anyway, here's this article. I'm going to post this article on ending the cycle of split ends. They did a study. They studied a whole lot of hair. Let me see if it says how many. They're not telling me how many samples they had. See, that's bad. They're not telling me how samples, but they are telling me that the samples were combed 3,000 times, 1,500 strokes per side with a robotic arm, while a blow dryer was pointed at the end. If that's not going to fry your ends, nothing will, right?
Yeah, that's brutal.
I want people to just kind of browse this scientific study and just kind of let it just swim in it a little bit. See what you get out of it. Just have fun. Just like swim in this article. They've got pictures. Figure one, by the way, in a scientific or an academic piece of work, the pictures are called figure one, figure two. That means there's a video there. So, and there's something to look at. So I want you to go through the whole darn thing and take a look at these figures, because figure one shows that they found 10 categories of split ends. they found, and they're looking at split ends through the scanning electron microscope, they discovered that hair is diverse in that it can split ends into 10 different subtypes.
Huh. That's interesting.
Including baby, which is just a little teeny bit of the end split, primary, deep, incomplete, double Y, triple, tree, feather, long, and tapered.
Well,
10 different categories of split ends. Who would have thunk?
crazy.
And then they have a picture of the theoretical life cycle of a split end. Figure 4, it shows kind of a theoretical mechanism for split end binding using this strange substance called PEC. It shows also, and they use that ingredient, and then they show before and after pictures of the 10 categories of split ends. And what do you know? That stuff, I got to find out what that stuff is. The PEC, it's a polyelectrolyte complex. PEC, polyelectrolyte complex, comprised of PVM/MA copolymer and polyquaternium 28. You don't have to memorize that. There's no test.
Oh, good.
So that stuff, the PEC, has been shown to bind split ends. And this is a study that verified that. And the hairs look just the same as in the before picture.
Crazy.
So what it is the PEC stuff. It has both positive and negative. It has anionic and cationic together. Who would have thunk that? Plus and minus together. And what happens is that one of those sides attaches the substance to your hair, and the other one attaches to themselves, so it glues the hair right back in place.
Wow. That sounds neat. I could be a subject for that study.
Yeah, as I. A lot of us, you know.
Science is advancing.
Science is advancing, and this is just a interesting example of science applied to cosmetic chemistry. And this is good science, okay?
Cool.
They have all of the qualities of a decent science. But, you know, if there's no reference to other studies that have shown similar results, don't be taken for a fool. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's very easy to just like blow your mind with a little over complexity, and then you just buy the conclusions instead of staying skeptical.
Instead of saying,
"Oh, Patty."
Okay, folks, we're going to wrap this one up. We've been talking for a little while now, and it's so good to be here with you, Barbara, and get to chat. And I hope you like all of my new manipulations of our ads and the intro and all that.
You did a great job. Thanks for freshening that all up. I think our listeners will appreciate a little different take on some of that stuff too.
Yes, more to come.
I hope I didn't bore you people to sleep. You can chew me out if you want to.
Yep, hit her up on the GroomPod discussion group Facebook page if you'd like to chew her out. And look for her at Fun in the Sun. Thank you very much, Marg. Thank you, Colleen, for the donation. Thank you to our sponsors, and thanks to you guys for listening. Okay, happy grooming, everyone. See you next time on the GroomPod. Bye now.
Remember, we love ya.